Welcome to another episode of the Wandering Watercolor. Today we are painting the 7th page of the Fairy Tales and Legends watercolor coloring book. It's a book that I hand make using lithographs, and let's get started. So this is the image for today's painting. It's a dwarf, mining dwarf that looks a bit like Gimli from Lord of the Rings. This is what the final image will be, what we're aiming to paint today. And as always, I recommend that you have a nice little plate that you can mix your colors on. Have a scrap piece of paper that you can kind of test out some of the colors before you lay them down on the drawing. And then a rag, a brush, any brush works. A little jar of water, a cup of water. And then your paints. You can use any paint. This is the one that I make and sell, and but any of the watercolor paints that you find in any store should work, no problem. I often like to wet them before I start painting, just because if they're wet, it makes them a lot easier to get more saturated colors. And you also don't have to like go back and forth as much, so it's just quicker. So yeah, the first thing that we will paint is the skin. So there's not a lot of portions of this one where there's skin showing. It's only like in the hand, the face, the elbow here, this hand, and this bicep. So all we're gonna do is we're gonna grab a little bit of the yellow ochre. If you don't have that in your palette, all you need is brown and yellow and maybe a little bit of white, and just kind of experiment and tweak them. And what I'm going to do is the yellow ochre here, and then a little bit of red, just a little bit. Oh, that's probably too much. Let's see, a little bit of red, and a little more. And it gives you kind of like a nice peachy color, which is pretty much what skin kind of looks like for lighter skinned people, or dwarfs, I guess. Also, you don't have to color it exactly how I am. You can honestly just do your own thing if you prefer. This is just kind of like a baseline for how to color these. Okay, let's see. I'm just going to add a little bit of the pink. That's a bit too orange, so a little pink. Yeah, I'm going to go with this one. I like that one much better. I'm just going to add more water so that it's a little more transparent. We'll go ahead and get that. Well, I'll start with this hand. Just get all that in there. And just go slowly. Remember, if you get outside of the lines a little bit, that's totally fine. And if you want to get very expressive, then you can intentionally go outside of the lines. If you're wanting to make things look a little more expressive and energetic. And then I'm going to go ahead and cover that in like that, just little by little, like that, like that. Okay, and the ear, and there's a little ear on that side. And then elbow. And the fingers here. Okay, maybe a little more over there. And pick up some of the color here with my brush. Maybe pick some of that up. Okay, so that looks good. Keep in mind, this will actually be lighter when it dries, so we'll just keep it like that. Then when we go back in to do the shadow layer, we're not going to do anything different. We're going to use the exact same color, but because we're adding more pigment, it'll let less light reflect from the white, which will actually make it look like a shadow. But it's a little hard to explain, but when you see it, you'll see exactly what I mean. Okay, so we're just going to rinse our brush, and then we're going to color in I was gonna say color in the beard, but the beard is touching some of the spots that we just painted, so we're just gonna give it a moment for that to dry. So in the meantime, we're gonna color in the brown part of the apron and the boots, and then when we get to the headgear, this part should be pretty dry. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna grab some brown, and actually let me test out the brown, see what it looks like. So I think we're just gonna use this just straight from the little pan. All I'm gonna do is add a bunch of water to it so that it's more diluted. Let's see. Yeah, that's perfect. So we're just gonna grab that and then go in right here, go in around the boot straps, and we can easily transfer some of that into the apron since the apron is the same color. Like that. And then like that. And then keep going. I almost started coloring the pant leg, but the pant leg is gray, so we'll leave that. And then do that, just little by little. Looks like he's got just a couple of pens in his pocket, so I'm just gonna leave those so I can color them in later. Okay, let's stop right there, and then the boot, the other boot, like that. Right there. Okay, looking good so far. Then the apron, the upper part of the apron, on the little belt loops here. Like that. And then I'll just cover these. I'm just painting right over the little buttons right here because they're black, so we can easily just cover that in whenever we're ready to. Okay. And then a little bit of brown right here for the apron still. So that looks good. And then we're gonna go ahead and color in the little strap that's holding the goggles together. Like that. I'm gonna try to leave this dot right there white if I can manage that. There we go. Okay. I'm gonna dry off my brush a bit just to pick up some of the color. There's a bit too much color there. Oh, also the light source of this is from the upper right, so it's kind of going in like that. So more on this side, and kind of like the angles on this end are going to be darker. But okay, so that looks good so far. Go ahead and rinse my brush. So while that is drying, I will go ahead and mix up some orange. If I remember correctly, I had a bit of difficulty with the orange. So let's see how this turns out. The orange is for the gauntlets and the boot straps. So we'll go ahead and we'll get some yellow. Get a bunch of yellow here, and then get some red. Kind of mix it together. Let's see, how's that looking? Actually, that's, wow, that's like almost perfect. I'm just wondering if I need just a little more red, just a little bit. Cool. I'm gonna add more water since the initial wash is just the base wash, and then whenever we add the shadow, we can make it a little more saturated. So just gonna go right in, just like that. Okay. Looks good. And then this one. Okay, that's good. And get the little straps here. Right there. Okay. All right, and then actually, yeah, no, that's it for the orange. Rinse off my brush. Now there's two yellows in this image. There's the belt buckle, and there's also the gold. And there's another shade of yellow which is in the little headgear, as well as on the strap around the waist here, and the knee pads, and the bottom of the boots. Okay, so I'm just gonna rinse that, and let's see. We'll go just for the straight yellow first. Honestly, that looks a bit too much like a highlighter. Let me see. I'm just gonna use just a little bit of the yellow ochre in there, just to try to dull that down a little bit. Otherwise, it's too much. Yeah, that's better. Okay, maybe a little more yellow. All right, so just go in there like that. That looks good. And then the belt buckle. Okay. All right, so all of that looks good. I'm gonna rinse off my brush. Okay. Now I gotta mix the second yellow, which is honestly, it's just a bit of the yellow ochre, kind of looks like. Mixed in with the yellow. Yeah, yellow ochre with the yellow. And give it just a slight hint of red. There we go. Okay, that's good. So we'll go ahead and we'll get that in here. Yeah, that looks a bit orangish. Or somewhere in between. I don't even know. Yeah, there's a lot of colors in this image that I kind of made them very close together. But it's okay, because you can always kind of adjust them. Even after you lay down a color, you can adjust it with a second layer of coating of whatever. You know, any color that you want to put on it, just to make it look darker or push it more towards a certain other color. Okay, so that looks good. I'm going to go ahead and color in the bottom here. Okay, so that's good. And oh, actually, also the belt here, and that strap. Okay. Alright, so that's good. Rinse off our brush. Alright, now we can go ahead and focus on the beard. So I'll go ahead and I'll grab some red. There's a lot of red in that beard. But it's not just straight red, because that's too strong. I'm going to add a little bit of brown. Try to bring it down a little bit. That looks... Yep, that's more like it. So I'll just grab that and just do a wash. The initial wash has more water, so it's not as intense. That way we have something that we can use to contrast against the shadow that we'll be laying down. So we still want the same color, but we want it lighter. And I'm just kind of gonna go slowly here in the beard. All of that looks good. Looks good. Okay. And here. And the eyebrows. Just go slowly at the eyebrows. You don't want to get it into the eyeballs. You want to avoid that. There we go. Okay, so we're just gonna let that dry before we go ahead and start adding shadows. That looks good so far. Next, we'll go ahead and get the color for the undershirt and pants that he's wearing. That color is a bit of a, it's like a gray brown. It's like a dark grayish brown. So we'll start by getting some brown right here. We'll put some brown down right here, and then we'll get some of the dark blue or ultramarine blue. Whatever blue you have, if you're using a different palette, is fine. Just get some brown and blue, and if it comes out looking too light, just add more brown to try to get kind of like a grayish brown. When you add blue and brown together, you can get a really nice gray. So like this right here is probably just about the exact same brownish gray that we need. Yep. So go ahead and we'll lay that down. So a layer in here. Maybe I should have made it. That's okay. It still looks different. I was gonna say you could make it a little more blue to just separate itself from the brown that's already here on the clothing, but it still looks good enough. It's also much darker, so it differentiates itself. Okay, get in here and just slowly. Okay. And just take your time take your time, don't even worry about it. Okay, that's looking good. Okay, now rinse off my brush. Next, we will mix up the gray that will be on all the metal parts. So the head of this hammer, the pens that are in here, the metal part of his boots, the shovel, and a little bit up here on the headgear. All of that has gray in it, and the way we'll mix that gray is a little bit of brown. Using a lot of brown on this one. A little bit of brown, and more of the lighter blue. So you can see how this looks. That looks fairly blue. It's almost like a grayish blue, but we need more water so that we can kind of dilute it. And that's pretty good, actually. Yeah, we can go ahead and use that. Like the shovel. Like that. Here on the boots. Okay. And the other boots. And the shovel. We can kind of overlap here a little bit. Okay, all on this. And then on the hammerhead. And then right there. And then the pens, just slowly go in there carefully. Remember, if you go outside the line, not a big deal. And then I'm just gonna do a little bit right here. And on the side. And then I'm gonna dry off my brush and then pick up some of that excess. And go on the side of the little goggles here. Okay. That's looking good. I rinse my brush. This glove, kind of like the hand part of the gauntlet here, is more of like a yellow ochre, like with a little bit of brown. So I'm just gonna throw in a little bit of, yeah, that's fine. I'll just go like this. Yeah, it ends up looking, yeah, that is very close to the orange. Yeah, I really need to bump up the orange color here. No problem. We can do that right now. So we'll go ahead and we'll grab some of the red and mix it up here with the orange that we had previously. And let's see how that looks. That looks a bit too red. Let me get a little bit of the yellow ochre. Let's see what happens. That's better. Okay, we'll just go with that. So we'll go ahead and we'll add the shading, which is, so there's lines here that we're just gonna kind of go like this. And fill in this part and do more on this end. There's segments in the gauntlet which make it, which have depth to them. That's what we're adding here. Okay, and then also right here, we're gonna cover all of that. And then a bit like that, a bit like that, like that. And here, like that. And same with the little bootstraps here. Bottom like this. And like this. And just very slowly, one at a time, like that. So this part is going to be mostly in shadow. That's why I kind of covered this half of them, this half of the bootstraps on this leg, more kind of like that. So you'll see what I mean. I rinse off my brush. And then I'm gonna dry it off a little bit. I'm just going to grab this color, which is the skin color that we've mixed. This is the very first color that we mixed. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go in right here and add shadow like this. And see, we're not adding any different color. It's just that we're layering it and it's more concentrated, so it'll give us a nice shadow. Kind of like that. We're starting to add in the shadows now. And then the bicep right here. And then some of the knuckles here. And the fingers, kind of like that. Right here, right here. And then underneath here. That for the face, maybe a little bit underneath the nose, over here where the face is kind of scrunching, like he's inspecting the nugget, the gold nugget, very carefully. So he's like kind of straining his eyes. So we can add more shadow there. And it doesn't need to be, the shadow itself doesn't need to have like a high contrast, because usually shadows on skin are much more they're much softer. So we have that there. Rinse my brush. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. I'm gonna step back for a moment just to double check. So far so good. This is a more complicated piece because there's a lot more colors in it, so it may take a little longer than the previous page. I'm gonna grab some of the brown here and then mix it in with the yellow ochre that was already there. We're gonna use that for the handle of the hammer that he's got on his side here. Okay, I'm actually gonna dry off my brush and pick up. There's a lot of excess color on here, so I'm just going to pick that up. Okay, looks good. Now we're going to focus on making the shadows for the brown in the clothing. For that, we will take the brown and we can take some of the blue, the dark blue. And yes, I know that it's going to look a lot like this color, so what we're going to do next is we'll add more brown, but we'll also add a little bit of, actually not red, we'll go ahead and we'll add some of the pink. There we go. Let's see, and a little more brown. The reason I added the pink here is because it pulls the brown shade into more of a warmer shade than a cooler shade. So this one has a cooler shade, and then this one is warmer. It gives it enough of a contrast where the two aren't confused when they're next to each other. such as right here next to the leg. So we'll go ahead and we'll start layering that in, like that, like that, and down here, like that. I have a bit too much on my brush. I'm going to get some of it off. Like that. Underneath the straps here. And then down here, like that. Following some of the wrinkles in the clothing here. I'm going to cover all that in. Like that. Underneath the belt is casting a bit of a shadow there. Over here for the pocket. And then maybe just a few small lines here for the other wrinkles. And maybe a little bit of an outline here on the belt loops. Like that. So looking good so far. We'll go ahead and we'll add some underneath the beard. Beard's casting a bit of a shadow, and then a little bit of a form here because of his belly. Also on this side, because this is all in shadow. And then this side, like right underneath the beard, on the side of the head here, and then also right there. So that's looking good. I'm gonna go like this, and then right here, kind of lining it up with the shadow of the straps, like that. Maybe a little bit more right here. And also this shovel is also casting a little bit of a shadow right there. So like that. So that's good. And then I'm just gonna cover the underneath of his shoe here. And let's not forget this little angle or triangle. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. A little bit right here on the side, just a little bit. There we go. And then for the headgear, go like that, and then also like that. Perfect. Okay, so that looks good. I'm pretty happy about that so far. I'm just gonna rinse my brush again. Next, we can finish coloring in the beard. We're gonna get more red, mix it in with this color that we had here previously. We're also gonna get more brown. Let's see. I'm just gonna test it here on the side. Okay, yeah, that's perfect. Perfect for the beard. So the way we're gonna do it is, in the beard, you want to do kind of like short strokes like this. In some areas, not all of them, because you want to show that there's hair, so you want to give a consistent feeling of the texture. So first I'm gonna go right here, and then I'm gonna go on the side here. I'm just gonna go short strokes, kind of like that. Like that. I'm gonna go more, there's more of a shadow right here. Like that. And then all of this. Just go slowly. And then all of this. And just kind of slowly put in some marks. There we go. I'm going back here. And then also in the mustache, Just putting in like a little bit of marking just to show. And there's a mustache there. There's a shadow there. A little bit right here. Like that. Behind the ear. Underneath the eyebrows. Just a slight line just to show that there's a shadow there. Just a little bit. Ever so careful. And also just a little bit of a line right here. Not so much because there's a shadow, just to show the distinction. Okay, a little bit on the mustache there. Okay, looking pretty good. Then on the back of the hair, like that. Okay. And then maybe just a couple more short strokes just to show that it's hair and the texture of hair. So that's perfect. I'm very happy with how this looks so far. Go ahead and rinse my brush off. And I will mix up some more of this gray, but it needs to be darker. So the way I'll do that is get some of the dark blue right here, and some of the brown, and some more of the dark blue. That's too much. And actually I'm gonna get a little bit of the black. Oh boy, I made a mess here. That is, now it just looks like black. So I'm just gonna pick up a bunch of it, get some more of the blue, mix it up, get more blue, mix it up, and let's test it. Okay, so that looks fine, but I need more pigment. So I need a little more black, a little more blue. And we don't need that. We don't need a lot of it, just because there's not a lot of places to put this on the image. But this is fine. So that looks fine. So we'll go ahead and we'll add some here in the hammer. Just a little bit there, like that, as well as right here, like that. Here in the shoes, like that, or boots. I mean. Like that. This side. All this. And then the side of the shovel. Like that. It's perfect. Here underneath the arm. The arm's casting a shadow on top of the shovel handle. And leave a little bit of a spot like the light is peeking through. A little bit underneath here, and then here on this boot, kind of like that, going down like that, and then the shovel like that, and then these indents in here. And it's looking good. Okay, I'd say we're like 80% done with this one. We're very close. The background and the rock underneath are very easy to do. I'm just gonna step back for a moment. Okay, so I think as far as on the actual figure, oh, one thing that we forgot. Just one quick little thing. Just get a little bit of light blue. Not a lot. Just kind of like put a bunch of water on it. Okay, and just color that in where the goggles are. And then I'm going to use my rag and take some off, dry the brush, and then go back in, pick up some of that color. Just kind of like a little blue tint on the goggles. So yeah, it looks pretty good. Oh, we forgot the shadow on the knee pads. So for that, I'm just gonna get a little yellow ochre and mix it up with the dark brown here. I'm just gonna go like that, and yeah, that looks sufficient. So we're just gonna go like this and like that. That's good. Also, I'm gonna put a bit on this part of the gauntlet here, just like that. Okay, so that looks good now. So we're pretty good there. Two things left: the rock, well, three technically. The rock, the background, and then the outline. So I'm just gonna switch out my plates here since I'm running out of space. But if you have space on your plate, don't worry about it. Just keep going with what you've got. Then, so what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna lay down some water first. I'm gonna get some green, get some brown. Okay, maybe a little more green. So now this just looks like a very dark green. What we need to do is put in some dark blue, because we're trying to get almost like a mossy rock. Put some blue in there. Like a mossy rock green is what we're going for. Which actually, that's pretty close, but it's too concentrated, so I'm just adding a bunch of water here. Let's see. Yeah, I'd say that's pretty good. So we're just gonna go ahead and cover all of that in, all this rock. Okay. Just like that. Okay. Looks good. There's also a lot of red in this figure, so having this contrasting green tone, even though it's not a straight green, it's mixed, it still gives good contrast to what's already there. Okay, mix that in. It makes the figure stand out more. And you don't have to fully cover the rock, you can just kind of leave some texture here down at the bottom. So that looks good. We're going to let that dry, and while that's drying, we will mix the background color. So I'm imagining him being inside of a cave. You know, he's just mining and then inspecting some gold. So I'm just going to grab some of the brown, some of this brown like that, and then also some of the yellow ochre. Just mix those two together. Maybe a little more brown. Let's see. Maybe I want to dull it down so it's not exactly like the color of the knee pads or the gauntlet here. So I think that's pretty good though. I'm just gonna grab this and I'm gonna put a little more pressure when I put it on the paper so that I get those nice streaks and pick up some of the texture of the paper. Now, I'm not going to do that when I'm going very close to the body of the figure, just because I don't want to mess it up. But the further out that I go from the figure itself, I'm going to do that so that I can give that texture. Like that. perfect. And give some texture here. There we go. The texture also helps to separate the figure from the background. So, because if we keep doing the same flat wash on everything, everything just kind of blends together. Changing up the texture helps alleviate some of that. Cool. All right, so that looks really good. Very happy with it so far. Rinse our brush. And dry off our brush. And then we're going to pick up the darker mossy green that we have here for the rock. We're just going to use it straight for the shadow. And go in like this. Like that. And a little bit underneath the boot here. There we go. Going down this way, because the knee would kind of be casting a bit of a shadow. So we got that. Also, we're just going to throw in some shadow for the rocks. You know, how the rocks have these angular shadows. Like that. Kind of like that. Maybe press in a little bit in the paper, give it some texture. And then, let's see, we're just going to imagine the shovel where the shadow would fall down, something like that. Okay, looking good. And then the foot that's sticking out off of the shovel, probably get like a bit of a shadow like this. Something like that. And then also up here for the knee. Okay, looks good. Maybe another shadow here for the rock. Cool. Let's see. Yeah, definitely came out a little lighter than the original, but still looks good nevertheless. Now, this is good enough on its own, so it looks great. So you can stop and call that finished. But just to stay consistent, as previously mentioned on the last piece, we'll go ahead and we'll do the outline in black. And again, you can use a regular ballpoint pen, that's fine. I'm just using this just because it's much easier for me to get the angles without blocking the camera. So that is what I'm doing here. So we'll start off right there. And when you're doing the outlines, don't feel like you have to do them perfectly. Like, you could add a little bit of like an expression and make some of the lines look more sketchy. Not in the face. I would suggest you avoid doing that in the face, just because faces are really easy to mess up and they're immediately noticeable. So if you're gonna try to do more like right here, I might add just like a little bit of like a scribble for the hair texture, like this. Maybe a little more like that. Make it look a little scruffier. I'm gonna move this so I don't put my palm in it. But yeah, like the eyebrows here, just go slowly. And then the actual eyeballs, put like a little black in them just so that they pop a little more. Like that. And the nose. And then right here. And then here for the little scruffiness for the mustache. Like that. Over here for the hair, the beard. I'm gonna just do like a black dot here for the suspenders, or not suspenders, but the apron, the upper part of the apron. Just gonna go like that. The hand, we're just gonna go in just slowly. Also, if you're doing a ballpoint pen, you're more than likely having to put your hand on top of the image to kind of like get like a good angle. If you're doing that, you may want to make sure that everything's dry completely, and maybe even put in like a scrap piece of paper or like a tissue, like something like this, to cover your hand as you're doing the outlining. The reason I'm doing this without doing any of that is because this pen is long enough to where I can reach different spots on the paper itself without having to put my hand on it. If you're doing that, obviously just ignore what I just said as far as the tip. Like that. Okay. Add some outline here. And here. And it doesn't have to be, like, you don't have to always do like just a straight line, like a unbroken line. You can always play with the variation of the lines. See what looks better. You know, like here in the beard, I'm just doing like very short strokes, just kind of like emphasizing the texture. Like that. Maybe a little more thicker strokes here on where there's shadow more. And like that. That. Right there. Oh, looks good. This little part here, where the hammer is. The knee pad. Like that. Okay. And then outline here, maybe a thicker outline down here for the apron. Some outlines for where the folds are. Maybe do a little squiggly line there. Right there. Maybe black dots here in the boots. Like that. And some outlines for the straps. I didn't notice I'm not doing the outlines on top of the straps because where the light's hitting it. So you can just kind of play around with that idea. Like, you don't have to put outlines everywhere. You can just kind of pick and choose a little bit which parts you want to emphasize. Okay, there we go. That's good right there. Okay. Okay. And that. Looks good. And feel free to add like some squiggles here and there and some scratches. Maybe give it some character. some lines underneath for the boot. So yeah, that's pretty. Oh yeah, let me just get the shovel too. I almost forgot the shovel. Let's see, like that. Okay, and step back for it for a moment. Yeah, that actually looks pretty good. Very close to the original. It's just that the original had a little darker background, and yeah, but close enough though. Yeah. So we're done with that one. Okay, so that was, well, that's almost an hour. Man. Well, thank you for sticking with me the whole time, if you did. And if you didn't, that's fine too. Feel free to tag me just to show me what you've done. You don't have to follow these. These are just kind of like a baseline just to give you an idea of what you can do. But I always like seeing what people actually do when they do their own thing. But yeah, this was a kind of a more complicated one. I think this may be like one of the more complicated in this book, but it turned out pretty good. So I'm happy about that. And I will see you next time.